Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Leadership Podcast. In the last while, I've been feeling like I've been doing things in my own strength. And I've been asking this question: am I being led by the Spirit as a leader? I'd like to ask you that question today. Do you feel like you are Spirit-filled in your leadership? I know we go through seasons where we do things in our own strength, and we've got to be reminded by God through His Word and by His Spirit convicting us that we need to lean into Him again. The idea that I'd like to focus on today is that the church is most effective when her leaders are Spirit-filled. In Acts 6, the apostles were doing everything, and they were running on empty. And eventually they realized we need to bring in more people onto this team, into this wider team who can do some of the practical things while we do the preaching. And what seemed to, in the natural eye, be jobs that are quite simple and mundane, they said we require men who are full of the Spirit and full of wisdom. Note, they didn't say we need men or people who are very skillful, who are very eloquent, who have a good CV. They said we require people who are Spirit-filled and who are full of wisdom. It reminds me of a time when I was about 17, and I was very much a Christian who was on the back burner. And I was sitting in an SCA meeting, and suddenly I felt the Holy Spirit nudge me. I think it was the first time that this had happened to me. I wasn't the most skillful person. I still am not. I wasn't the most eloquent person, but I was sitting in the back of this SCA meeting, and I felt the Lord say to me, go and ask if you can share next week. I was petrified. I'd never really been good at doing orals and speeches. I would often be terrified to do so. And I eventually plucked up the courage to do so, to speak to the teacher and say, can I share next week? And the most incredible thing happened. And I remember just before doing that, I had experienced the infilling of the Holy Spirit for the first time. Now remember, I'm not the most skillful, not the most eloquent, but for the next year and a half after asking if I could do this, I was sharing every single week in that SCA meeting. And God had done something incredible with an ordinary person. And we saw incredible things happen in SCA at the school that I was involved in. And that's the whole idea, that as leaders, in order to do great things for the Lord, in order to see the church thrive, in order to see lives change, we need to be Spirit-filled. We cannot run on our own strength and our own ability. In Acts, we see this happening on many occasions with many different leaders. In fact, the reason why the book of Acts is called Acts is because we are seeing the acts of the Holy Spirit played out through people's lives. And so some examples we see in Acts 4, where Peter is filled with the Spirit, and he addresses the religious spirit of those leaders of the time in Acts 4, and he challenges them, and he brings the gospel across. In Acts 7, one of the more well-known stories in the book of Acts is Stephen, one of those that were chosen as Spirit-filled and wise. We see him being stoned, and only through the supernatural ability of the Lord, the Spirit that had filled him, is he able to offer forgiveness and forgive those who were murdering him. And what did that lead to? It led to the salvation of Paul the apostle. Incredible. And finally, just another example is that of Philip in Acts chapter 8, where the Spirit of God comes upon him, and he is led to the Ethiopian, and he shares the gospel with them through the book of Isaiah, and we see salvation and baptism. Incredible things happening. The question is how? How do we continue being filled by the Spirit being led by the Spirit, and it's very simple. We need to daily submit who we are, our lives, lay ourselves down before the Lord, our abilities, our thoughts, our plans, and we say, Lord, let your kingdom come, let your will be done. And remember, the Father has told us that we can ask. We can ask Him for a Spirit. He gives us good gifts. My prayer and my challenge is that we would be leaders who are filled by the Spirit, led by the Spirit, and we will see the church thrive in this next season. God bless.